Go!
3, 2, 1, Ghost. Hey, everybody. Welcome to 3, 2, 1, Ghost. Always, I'm your host with the silent G. Don't ever forget. My name's Kyle. And of course, I'm sitting here with my pal, Natalie. How you doing, Natalie?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Kyle. I'm doing great.
That's great. I'm just going to get right to it. We're talking about 2007's James Wan, Leigh Whannell partnership, Dead Silence. Now, I'm just going to maybe just to kind of just start, or I don't know, just to kind of set the tone for this. This movie's great. It's pretty bonkers, and boy, do we have questions. But don't let that muddy the perspective, because I really had a lot of fun with this one. What did you think?
I was very excited to cover this movie. I've seen it many times and I really love it. I think it is extremely underrated. It has a lot of problems. It's not a perfect movie by any means, but this one was on your list.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, this one was on your list, and honestly, one of the reasons why I did not pick it is because I'm a little worried that a lot of people have not seen it, but my secret hope is that maybe, just maybe, we can recruit people into the pro Dead Silence camp.
Yeah, it's we talk about a lot of movies that are in that 20% Rotten Tomato range, high
This one's
teens,
20%.
20%, 20 on the dot.
Mhm.
But, it does have a higher Metacritic score of 34. Or does that
Okay.
mean, or no, or does that mean, I don't know. I'm not even going to talk out loud about how all of that works out. But basically, I think some people saw it, but it seems like the consensus is people hated it. And I get it. And I've been listening
Mm.
to kind of in prep for this. There's a couple other horror podcasts I listened to that have done episodes on this, and people are real brutal about this one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
super brutal. I'm hoping that maybe we can give a perspective of why why it is a lovable film, and also just I don't know. This is a perfect example of a situation where you need to go into it and just have fucking fun. Like, don't overthink it. Don't sit and think about the logistics of things. Just have fun with it. We are going to dig into the logistics of things, though, for the record. But I just have a lot of fun every time I watch this movie. It scares me, like in its haunted toy themes are always going to be a thing. I don't know that we've even delved into, Chucky and our love for that whole franchise, but any type of killer doll situation, demonic toy, whatever it may be, like, give it all to me. I need it all.
I was gonna ask you, and you beat me to it. I was gonna
Good.
say, would you fancy yourself more, being pediophobic, or would you consider yourself more, more of a pediophile?
Wow.
To be
I'm
clear,
assuming, can I guess?
sure.
Pedophobic would be a fear of dolls.
Specifically, inanimate objects that look human.
Ooh, okay, that's a great
So
one.
that could be both a ventriloquist dummy in this situation, or a voodoo cursed good guy doll like Chucky, or was Annabelle just a doll, right? She wasn't a ventriloquist situation.
No, Annabelle's a doll.
Okay.
Yeah,
But yeah, so the
yeah.
any of those would fall into that category. That I really wanted to over enunciate the pedio, to be very clear.
Yeah. So the
Crucial difference.
yes. So the the pediophile would be someone who is intrigued by inanimate objects that look like people.
Um, yeah, 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 sure.
Okay.
To whatever degree you want to. It's like an audiophile is someone who loves music, but a pedophile is clearly like has its own connotations, right? So like, no, I don't think being a pedophile means that you want to fuck this doll. No.
No,
But
no, like not that you want to fuck the doll, but that you're like, you
right,
see like a creepy doll and you're like, ooh, like I could put that in my home decor. Like I'm into it.
yeah, but would you though, if you ran across a creepy
No.
doll like that?
So this is the thing. I don't want anyone to send me any creepy dolls. So and we'll get into that. But this situation is a situation where I enjoy watching them on screen and they scare the shit out of me. So I think it's super fun. But there are a lot of Chucky fans out there that actually own a good guy doll. Never, never in my life. I don't care how pretend I know it is. I'm not doing it. I'm not buying one. I will not have it in my home. I don't want any dolls of any kind in my home.
It is both a fear and a respect, a respectful fear, like the orca or the brown bear. You know, it's like, yes, does are they graceful? Are they beautiful? Are you intrigued? Do you
Yeah.
want them around in just your day to
Yeah.
day whatever? Maybe, sure, but at a distance where you feel safe, and that's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think that I don't think I need to have that in my house. And this is a fun story. So I'll tell you about Kim. Her name's Kim. Kim is my grandmother's doll
Oh
that she has
Jesus,
had. She has had this doll since she was a child.
why was I preparing for Kim to be a person? Why I
No,
don't.
Kim was a doll, and she's about like probably about like Chucky, good guy doll size, maybe a little smaller.
2.5
But
feet.
my grandmother's 75 and she's had this doll since she was about 5 or 6. So
Oh
this is an
no.
old fucking doll and she looks like it. Like, imagine a doll that's supposed to look like a small child, not a baby doll, but her eyelid, like one eye is kind of drooping down, like it's kind of like a lazy eye that like flickers when you move her. Her eyelashes are busted. Her hair is grimy and dirty. Her fingernails are dirty around the cuticle. Like she's terrifying. Everyone who stayed at my grandmother's house, sees Kim, and then Kim is surrounded by a collection of porcelain dolls, and she puts these in the guest room next to the bed. They
Who
sleep next to you.
why? It's always that. Like it's like they always take it so far like that. Like it's no one can just like treat like even just a creepy doll like they just can't be handled normally. Though I would push
No,
back just a little bit on the condition of that doll. I mean, come on. In our late teens, early 20s, who hasn't woke up with a little bit of greasy hair and your
I
eyelashes half fallen off? Come
mean
on.
this doll has not bathed probably in her whole life and has
Mm.
been, from coast to coast. She's lived a rich life. So
Why the dolls? Why are you saying this? Why are you giving human properties?
because my when I said to my grandmother, that's terrifying, like it needs to go anywhere else, she's like, first of all,
Mm,
second, she's like, this is where the dolls stay. And I was like, do you do this intentionally to freak everyone out? I'll have to see if I can find, I took a picture of all of them next to the bed. I'll have to see if I can find it and share it with everybody. But she's like, yeah, I'm not moving them. She's like, I think it's kind of fun to fuck
is
with everyone.
is first of all not cool, and but your grandmother is a very kind woman, so
She
I'm
is.
gonna watch what I say. But I have you do you have access to her will by any chance? Do you know what's happening with those fucking dolls?
I don't, but I know she updates it frequently. We are a macabre family. She
Mhm.
if you say, "Oh my gosh, I really like that painting," she says, "Put a post-it on the back of it with your name and I'll give it to you when I die."
I love it.
So Kim very well might be left to me, knowing full well that
Oh,
she's terrifying.
Geez. Now the twist is going to be like, you're going to find out that the post-it had your kid's name on it, and you didn't know that he was like, oh, cool doll, I want this, not knowing any different. And then you see it in his room, and you're just like, and then you scream, and then your tongue gets ripped out, and so forth and so forth.
As
Um,
it would.
so this movie, I think if anything, I think what drew me so much to it was, gosh, like we've talked about, these like, 2000 to 2010, and the whether it was kind of like the swaths of like remakes, or
Mm-hmm.
for lack of a better term, like that kind of torture porn fad,
Mm-hmm.
and what I liked about this one was, just even if it was bad, it was like, give me just some goofy ghost story. Like that's
Yeah,
that's what I want. And I feel like that ghost stories started to become more in fad into the like in the 2010s. So
I
I
agree.
I really appreciated this movie. And then also, one thing that really didn't move the needle for me was the team that's behind this. James Wan directed this, and Leigh Whannell wrote this. This is their first time collaborating since the first
Mm-hmm.
Saw movie.
Yeah.
And I did check that James Wan, I don't think, did another Saw movie. It was all Darren Lynn Bousman that, or at least he did the next few after that. I only looked up through like Saw
I
5.
I think that
Um,
is, as far as I know, that is correct. And this was before James Wan, like other than Saw, like this was before the whole Conjuring universe had begun, correct?
Conjuring, I believe, was 2009, like a couple years later,
Yeah. So that's when
a
like
few
he
years after
really
that.
starts to find his footing. Overall, I'm a fan of James Wan. I mean, he has a few films that I've seen that I'm not super like big on, but um
Don't
I
you
like what
dare
he's
say Fast
created.
7. That's, I
That
mean,
wasn't even on my radar. I was keeping it just all horror.
okay. Yeah, I just, the Conjuring movies, I mean, they're funny to make fun of. They've got, the first one has its moments, and then they just kind of get dumber and dumber. I mean, gosh, like most sequels. But yeah, James Wan, I mean, like, gosh, now he's like, he did like, right, he's doing like those Aquaman movies. He did a couple
Hmm.
Fast and the Furious movies, which, I think they're fun. They're dumb fun. But
I Full disclosure, I've not seen one ever.
that's awful.
Your
That's awful.
podcast canceled.
Yeah, we just
This partnership is done.
yeah.
I do want to watch them. I will admit, like I think they're probably going to be silly, good fun. I just have there's so many now. I feel like it's such a time obligation. So,
When I
maybe we'll
watched
cover
them,
them.
it was, by the time there were 6 that were out at that point, and I had like a real bad bout of the flu. And when you're just in this fever haze, like that's kind of the best time to sit and just absorb all of that. So I watched like all six
Oh
in a
goodness.
row, like in just this high fever haze, you know. And so I remember most of it, and just kind of just bobbed my head and enjoyed it, and just went in and out of sleep, as I was just heavily just on like, whatever, like NyQuil or whatever,
Tons of
and
medication.
tons of medication. And I sort of got almost done with the story. And then I went, once I felt better, it was around the time Fast 7 came out. And then
Mm.
I went and saw Fast 7. I dragged my wife to go see it, bless her heart. And damn, if you wouldn't believe it, I totally forgot Paul Walker died. So they have this whole thing at the end.
No.
Oh my God, where they're playing the Wiz Khalifa song, and it's just like,
Ah.
and I'm just like, that was like that, and like maybe my wedding were probably the closest I ever got to crying in like recent as an adult. Um, and because I'm not, yeah, I don't cry much, but man, that hit me. But maybe it was still just coming out of that illness. I'd lost a lot of weight and a lot of so, but yeah, James Wan, he's really become,
He's got
I don't
he's
know.
got some he's got some weight right now. Like he's what
And
really surprised me about this movie, I like actually I don't always do this, but I looked at the budget versus like how much it made. I thought that a movie like just opening weekend before anyone decided that they hated it, that it would have done really well just because of the spooky ventriloquist dummy theme. Like, I feel like most people find that to be scary and intriguing. Maybe I'm putting my lens on the general audience. Yeah, a little bit, a little bit.
I'm gonna
Um,
say just a little bit.
okay, $20 million budget and a $22.3 million total box office. So
And usually
it
the
made
budget,
16 in the first weekend and then only 7 after that through
there
its
was
the
just
rest of its run.
that feverish just rush to go see it. And
But
then
like I was really surprised and disappointed at the general public. So I don't know what I need to do to get more people on board for movies like this.
I mean, I do remember, again, like we'd mentioned before, like having to go out to a theater in the middle of nowhere to see Seed of Chucky,
Did we
which was
see this
only,
together?
well, no, but we went and saw Seed of Chucky, which is only 3 years prior. And remember, nobody was in that movie theater. Maybe one other weirdo. And I don't
Yeah.
know if people were clamoring for doll movies as much as we think, or at least, I don't know.
You're sure
Especially,
that we didn't see this together? This would have been
uh,
2007.
we probably
So,
did. I was working at the movie theater at the time, and I remember it added an extra layer of fright to this movie because I went and saw it. I was a manager at the time, so we were like screening prints, when they would actually come on like actual
mhm,
like film reels. So we'd splice the film together. I mean, I wouldn't. I was terrible at it, and then but I would sit and watch the movie just to make sure like
mhm.
nothing blew up. Make sure the print looked okay, wasn't warped or anything, and um there was some other, a couple other midnight movies or late movies going on because I think like they were like, if we're gonna be here, upstairs in projection doing all this, might as well have a concessionist open and might as well have run like whatever summer movies were out
Mhm.
or whatever. And so watching the movie, because we were the only ones in the theater, it was like dead quiet, dead silent actually.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh. And so you could hear, the movie, you could hear it, but also you could hear the footsteps running up and down the
You
ceiling.
you did not watch this with me. I remember this story, and so if you did watch it with me, you had already seen it.
Okay, because
Yeah.
that's when I was watching it. Yeah, yeah. So but that was pretty good. And then I love the movie. I saw it. I know I've bought it on DVD at some point. I probably have it somewhere. I don't know. I'm looking at my very limited. I've scaled back a lot with my plastic and my DVD collection and Blu-rays, so I don't see it over there. But maybe I should get it if there's a 4K release. I don't think there's gonna be though.
I don't think there will be.
Yeah,
That's a hopeful thought.
but
Um,
I don't know. So yeah, I this but again, kind of not really moving the needle with Leigh Whannell and James Wan really in this case, because I'll be honest with you, like I've only seen the first three Saws and I think they suck. I am not a Saw fan
that's a
at
hot
all.
take. There's a lot of really big Saw fans out there, and I really like the first one. I remember watching it in the theater and like really enjoying the
It's so
experience of it.
boring.
Well, but that's the thing. It is now like that I've
Mhm.
seen it several times. So like I don't think it has great rewatchability, but I'll say like on a first watch, Saw is super fun. And if you don't know like the twist, which would be wild if you didn't at this point, but like if you don't know, like it's quite fun. The second one, I remember thinking like, okay, this is getting a little convoluted, and then it just like keeps building the story and backtracking, and like it's so elaborate at a certain point. I think I've watched the first, gosh, I think I have made it to 5, and then I was like, this is enough. Like
I
I don't
think
think I need more of this.
doesn't the dude from Lincoln Park, rest in peace, doesn't he show up at some point?
Oh, I have
I
no
think pretty late
idea.
in there. But gosh, but the thing is, you are describing Fast and the Furious
Oh,
to me.
Jesus.
So you would think I'd be like, oh, a horror version of just this convoluted, like just nonsensical,
Yeah.
just commitment to consistency, even though, and then if there are plot holes in the way of that consistency, just fuck
Mm.
it, just walk right around them and ignore it. Who cares? Don't answer it. Doesn't matter. And that's what I do love, the energy, that energy that they bring to this. It's Yeah, it's really dumb. And watching this, there are definitely, I was like, oh yeah, you can tell this is from the Saw guys. This is really,
Oh yeah, even
oh
like
yeah.
the intro is like feels so 2007, like the music and the way that like just the colors and going through all of that. I'm glad that they got that shit out of the way before the actual opening because it's not my favorite. It's probably my least favorite thing about this movie, which
What a
I high bar.
what a perfect segue to jump right in. I
Yeah.
one thing was that I see it mostly with Universal movies, but that trope of uh doing just like the old timey Universal logo and this, and I'm
I
kind of
love the
like,
old-timey Universal logo, but I didn't think that this movie would be
hated
like
it.
of the caliber like to warrant
And
that
like what,
Universal logo.
it's not like the movie like takes place in the past. It does
Yes.
reference, yes, something that happened,
Yeah.
what are we saying, 60 years ago, generally
It would have been in the
65 years ago.
40s. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
did they give a date? I was just kind of figuring out the math from the
So
mortician.
the date that I'm referencing is the year on Mary Shaw's grave. So it says that she died in 1941. So
Right.
uh, presumably then her shows and all of that would be taking place in those the early 40s, late 30s.
um I'm definitely a stickler for citing sources, and this movie opens with, it's believed that, demons would like enter and like come out through the belly. And so
No,
what's the quote? Do
you
you
are
have it?
misquoting that shit so hard.
No, but what does that first part say about the demons?
Okay, I didn't write down the quote, of course, because I was relying, I really thought you were going to write it down. I'm not going to lie. But I literally put in
Usually
my notes, I put love the history lesson on the word of ventriloquist.
that is it's like it's believed that, demons can enter the body and, you know through their belly or some shit, and people
It's
speak,
speak
hence,
through their stomachs.
and speak through their stomachs.
Hmm.
Hence ventre, or ventrilo and quist or whatever. But
Hmm.
and the Latin word, which is like, to speak through the stomach or whatever. And then I'm like, but what does that have to do with demons? Like, what does the word? It's like you're making a
Yeah,
big jump saying it's believed, and also believed by who? That people would do this. I don't know. It's like
it's
some people would say that spirits can take the form of sandwiches that both have
oh my god.
peanuts and jelly. That's why it's called a peanut butter jelly sandwich. And you're like, hold on, where's this demon part? I'm sorry, that's a bad example, but
That was a really
but you
that was a
got it.
poor example.
Yeah, it was a poor example, but
Um, I like the sentiment of it. Do I think that it's necessary? No, because we're already starting off with like a lot of things. For them to just have us believe because like there's a lot of supernatural paranormal shit that goes on in this movie that we just have to accept is happening. And what I like about the
yeah.
people in it is that they're just like accepting that it's happening. Um,
That being said, I did like that opening with the credits and like the her with Oliver sketching and all of this. Like, this is with your very 2000s, like
yeah, I
creepy piano
see.
situation.
Okay, here's where it separates for me. I
Uh-huh.
liked the visuals, but like why all the effects? Like I think about Nightmare on Elm Street, like the
Hmm.
original Nightmare on Elm Street, where you just see Freddy like creating his knife, glove. And it's really just video of his hands like doing it, and there's not like fancy effects, and you've got the creepy music. I would have liked that because what we have is super dated and it just feels like a lot, but I like the visuals that are behind it of her, sketching this perfect doll concept.
Well, and I see like all of these like sketches she's making, and these notes where it's like expression, and then perfect doll, and ultimately she just makes Slappy from Goosebumps.
Yeah.
And then it
Yes.
makes like a bunch of ventriloquist dolls that just look like that. So I'm like,
They look very similar to Billy is the main doll, and a lot of them look the same. They just have slightly different eyebrows, or their eyes are a little bit squintier, or maybe a
I
different
did
color.
I did write down Slappy's I'm gonna call his Billy is the name of this doll.
Billy is
But
the name of his doll. Are you gonna call him Slappy the whole time?
yeah, but I did write down Slappy's uh drawn on eyebrows. Like the thin drawn on eyebrows. And
Yeah.
I was like, that was like a 2000s like high school
Yeah.
um fashion statement. So okay, so it is
He's of
it's
the
updated.
era.
So I do like how the movie gets right to it. Like, here's this fucking doll. You have
Hmm.
the you got Jamie, who's played by a guy that's allegedly on, I think he was on True Blood.
You said it like it's currently on. True
Yeah,
Blood
I don't
True Blood has
know.
been done for a
For
long
like a
time.
decade, right? But he was
Um,
he was on that. That's what he's known from, because otherwise I don't know anybody in this movie
oh,
outside of Donnie Wahlberg.
yes, of course. Well, I'll get to him. Obviously. But for Jamie is his name in the movie. He is
Mhm.
my least favorite person in this movie. Again, here we go again. Same theme of like, I get it. You're grieving, trauma, all the things, but like, you're making the worst possible fucking decisions this whole movie. And like, who can blame him? Because the way that his wife reacts to a fucking ventriloquist dummy being sent to their home when they're both from the same small town that has a whole ass background and story that presumably you moved out of for good
Yeah.
reason. He's like giggling and laughing and like, "Oh, you adopted a baby." And I was like, I fucking hate her. Like, she's the worst. If someone There's no situation in which that's getting sent to my house and I'm like, get it out of here. Do
Yeah,
we
leave
burn
that
it? Do we chop it up into pieces? What do we do here?
leave that thing in the fucking hallway, return to sender. I don't want it. I wouldn't even bring that thing. As
No.
soon as I saw what that is, I'm like, no, no, it's going
The
back
shape of the
outside.
box, that shape of the box is the good guy doll box.
Yeah.
Like it's the same shape as Chucky's box. Anything being sent to me that shape and size is not coming into my home.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, so they bring it in, and that was the one thing. It's like at first, like, they weren't very clear, and they never like explicitly say that they are from the same town, but they are. Like,
Yeah.
they allude to it enough, and the family's there in the funeral. But they're through the movie, they really pick and choose how much they remember of this, especially given that, like, so many people are dead, like with their tongues ripped out. Like, it's all
Yeah.
in the
You'd know the rhyme. You would know the rhyme if every fucking person that you knew was getting murdered
and
through decades.
every single person he talks to, like, throughout, like, they just add another line to the story. Like, even Donnie
Yeah.
Wahlberg like finishes it, and I'm like, how the fuck did you know? I was like, it's a pretty regional poem
When
for
does he finish it? Because there's a point in the movie where he says no one will talk to him about Mary Shaw.
It's later on in the hotel when Donnie Wahlberg he gets the dummy back and brings it, and
Hmm.
he's like, well, I won't talk to him, won't talk, will you talk to me, blah blah blah, is the ventriloquist dummy.
Mm.
And then that's when Jamie is like, oh yeah, there's a ghost story about my town, Mary Shaw, and if you scream, and he goes, oh yeah, yeah, I've heard this, rips your tongue right out, right? And I'm like, how the fuck did you know?
Oh, is it because of what happened to his wife?
Well, I mean, I guess, but I
Is
mean,
he presuming that that's what happened? So he's like, oh, here we go. This guy's
he
got
must
delusions.
be, but still, I don't know. Yeah,
I
leave that thing in the fucking hallway. And
It's and he goes out to get takeout. Like, I know that this is like pre DoorDash and all of the things, but like, go with him. Go with him to pick up the food. I'm not staying in this
oh well, with
apartment with
with
that
the
doll.
doll.
Fuck no.
Okay, if the doll was there, then yeah, I could come with you, or take the doll
Yeah.
with you, because okay.
Yeah, like I'm not handling this doll situation.
But she should have taken that more seriously, especially if she was the one that knew the
Mhm.
poem. And even
Mhm.
though at first Jamie's like, wait, what poem, what? And then he starts talking about, like, just the next scene, he like knows half the poem that his mom was reading it to him. So that was very inconsistent. Um,
Anything that has to do with like the movement of the story of Mary Shaw, because literally within like lines of each other, Henry, the mortician, he literally says like, "We don't say her name here," and then Jamie asks him one more additional question in an like an interrogating type way, and he's like, "Okay, let me tell you about Mary Shaw."
dude, and
Like
then all he says is either Mary Shaw or yelling Marion, his wife's name. He just goes back and forth. I'm like, bro, like follow your own rules.
it's Marion.
I know.
Marion is his wife's name. But
Um,
this opening scene I do think is pretty fun. I'm always a fan of a head, like a doll head turn while you're looking away,
always
or eyes shifting. Like that sort of situation is very effective for me
something
all
in
the
a
time.
sheet that like sits up, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I did like it. I don't know if it was very effective necessarily, but I get, because it's dead silence or whatever, but when everything goes quiet, but then you
I love
have
it.
that scene where like, the clock stops and the tea kettle goes and then that weird
Mm.
zoom in on the tea kettle. It was very Evil Dead for me. I was getting those kind of vibes from it.
The camera work.
Yeah, some of that camera work. And then she goes and pulls, the curtain off, or, pulls the, I keep saying the curtain, pulls the bed sheet off this thing. And then
Mhm.
you hear like a bunch of like knife slashing and sheathing,
I
which didn't
I
make
don't
any sense.
understand. I think I had a moment of being like, "Oh, I never really it like never really occurred to me like what the fuck is happening to her because she's being pulled. It sounds like she's being sliced, but is it not until she screams that like Mary can actually summon herself because she screams at the end. So I'm
Yeah.
like, is the doll having to use other means to try to scare her before we can reach into her mouth and take out her tongue. However, it's very The Ring. Like they look very like the
Yeah.
the corpses in The Ring, like how they're just like fucking they look unrecognizable almost. Um but I really enjoy Jamie's discovery of her afterwards. I love that whole scene. I think is really fun.
Yeah, I just put can't unsee that. If man, if I found my partner like that, that'd be a little rough. That'd be a little hard. I'd need
It's
to
the
go see a
voice
therapist.
throwing it's the voice throwing for me that would like fuck my shit up. Like I would just be in a world of confusion. Like, why did I hear you calling out to me and talking to me when you've been dead this whole time?
I feel
Like,
like you I feel like you could have chalked that up to, I don't know. I bet like any sort of like psychologist would tell me like that, I don't know, that it was something in my head hearing her voice shortly before I found her, like something, or maybe like I
or that
would
you
think
imagined it
that yeah,
afterwards. Like,
right.
well, because my thought process was, why would you hear that if you didn't know anything was wrong? Like he hadn't seen the blood, he hadn't discovered anything yet, but he's hearing her call out. So that I
I
I think
mean,
that's really fun.
we know what's going on.
We know. Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, it's pretty bad. And then she's just super dead. Very dead.
Yeah. It it's it's a pretty brutal one, and I enjoy the sheet over her and all the things. So
And then you
it's
have this like
it's
really
good.
weird before, like, as like, they're taking her out and he's like, mourning and this and this and this, like this very weird like zoom out shot like through his eye, and they do
There
it
is I.
twice. And then
Yeah.
the third time they continue to zoom out from him when he's sitting in the interrogation room. I think, are they going to do this again? And then Donnie Wahlberg walks in, and I was like, that's really weird. Why?
Don't they
I
do
don't
it
know.
with Billy as well in the beginning, like right at the beginning of the
Kind
movie
of,
when
or it
they
goes to
when they
the,
show the finished Billy doll, it like zooms into his eye to start the film.
and then it's like the eye hole through the front door, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So,
The
but this is where we get our introduction to Donnie Wahlberg.
yes.
Yeah. Also in a couple of those Saw movies, right? But not the first one.
I
So I
think
don't
he's
think he
only in
would.
this. Isn't he only in the second one? Because I think his character only lasts one movie.
He might be. I don't
I'd
know.
like I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but it's not a great situation for him, and he's a cop in both movies.
Hmm.
He's
Where would you rank Donnie Wahlberg, who, we all know is, well, I mean, maybe more people knowing him now as being the brother of Mark Wahlberg, but most people knowing him as being in New Kids on the Block.
I
Um,
don't think that most people would know him from New Kids on the Block. I think most people would know him as Mark Wahlberg's brother, or like from these movies specifically.
the co-proprietor of Wahlburgers. I think he's in
Hmm,
on that.
hmm. Yeah.
Where would well, first of all, are you familiar with New Kids on the Block? Because I'm not. I only know Joey McIntyre and Donnie Wahlberg.
You're adorable. Of course I am. You know, I am a boy bands girl.
So
And
I know where, like, okay, so I was wondering if you could explain to me where, you have this hierarchy in boy bands, right? So like in
mhm, mhm,
NSYNC, you clearly have Justin Timberlake, and you could maybe say
mhm.
is your number one, and maybe your 1B would be JC, probably. He sang lead like almost
No,
this
I
much.
yeah, JC was
You're shaking your
definitely
head
the
at me.
no. I had a moment where I was trying to place in sync, because I was not an in sync girl. I was a Backstreet Boys girl. So I'm doing
So
these
I'll
rankings off
use
of popular opinion
so I'll use
for
Backstreet
them.
Boys as the example where you
That's a
have
better example.
I mean, because like Nick wasn't really the leader of that group. I was really more like Howie, right?
Of the Backstreet Boys?
Yeah.
Okay, Kyle. Oh my
Come on.
gosh.
Come on. Educate me. Let's go.
There's a very simple formula here.
Yeah.
Okay. You've got you always have the one who's younger than the rest. Nick plays that role. So he's filling in the gap for all the really young fans.
Yeah.
Same situation for Joey McIntyre for the New Kids on the Block. Okay. You got your young one. Then you've got there's going to be always two that have like the strongest vocals, but are kind of like in the background. So that's your Howie and your Kevin.
Yeah. Okay. See, okay. All right. I'm not
Yeah.
far off.
So, but they're not as aesthetically pleasing as your Brian. Like Brian had that chiseled jawline. He played
That's
acoustic guitar.
I'm so sorry.
That's who
That's
you
who
were
I was
thinking was
thinking
Howie.
of.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Let me Google Howie
Yes.
BSB.
Yes, but he's great. He has a good range. He hits all the
That's
high notes. He gets that falsetto in.
sorry.
Um
I was thinking of Brian as like the leader.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Then you have your bad boy, who is AJ, and that role is filled by Donnie Wahlberg for the New Kids on the Block. So it's
Thank
the
you.
same formula. Of course, the New Kids on the Block were first, but Donnie was my favorite because I always liked the bad boy of the group.
Yeah.
So if you look at pictures of Donnie back in the day, like give yourself a little Google, like put 80s maybe on there, New Kids on the Block, Hanging Tough, great video, highly recommend. um Donnie was my favorite, even though you like that
This
hair.
yeah, that's pretty good. Fuck.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh my
yeah,
god. Oh, these kids are all so cute.
they're so cute. Yeah, Jordan though was the front runner, like he was the most popular, so he's your Justin Timberlake situation. It was Jordan Knight.
I've heard of that name too.
He put out a couple singles like solo, and they're kind of fun. So did Joey McIntyre. He had a couple hits.
Hmm. That's interesting.
Welcome to our New Kids on the Block and 90s boy band
Yeah.
podcast.
The Blockcast. Um, right? Sorry, there's just a picture that I thought was fantastic. This is the one that I saw. I'm just dropping it in the chat.
So excited.
With the bandana, it's pretty good. And that like pirate jacket that he's wearing, it's pretty good.
Yes. Yes.
That's pretty good.
Ah,
That hair is, yeah, a little more. Well, maybe it looks just as receding as it does in this one.
well,
But
that's hence the bandanas and the hats a lot of the time for Donnie. But
that's good.
I love the New Kids on the Block, and because I had older I had two aunts that were like only a couple years older than me. They loved the New Kids on the Block. So although our generation was not necessarily like New Kids on the Block adjacent. I was exposed to them as a young kid, and I just thought they were the greatest. So I actually just listened to one of their more recent albums, more recent, literally from like 2010.
Yeah, usually
Um,
anything after 2000 is just the same decade.
yeah,
It's that's what happens.
it's all the same. So yeah, I love Donnie Wahlberg, and I put here, and you're probably gonna scoff at me, but I was like, wait, okay, he's been in two horror movies as cops, and he's from New Kids on the Block. So I was like, industry legend? Question mark.
You know, I am not a gatekeeper to
I knew you were
appointing
gonna.
industry legend status. Now, I don't know if I would get there just yet, but hey, you know,
No,
if you want to
on
point
his
that
way,
award,
maybe. I'll see if maybe he picks up any other horror films, because those were both around the same time. So,
that is pretty good. I mean, like, would we call LL Cool J an industry legend? Oh, it's hard to say now.
oh,
I mean, and so I throw the IL award to usually people that aren't. Well, yes, yeah, because neither of them star in movies. Usually they're the supporting cast. Yeah,
mhm.
fuck yeah, industry legend Donnie Wahlberg, love it.
Yes,
Good for him.
yes. You
You know,
heard it here first,
hang that
folks.
star. So thank you for answering that question. I was curious, like where he was in the equivalent of the boy bands,
Yeah,
but here I
he's the bad
embarrassingly
boy.
show my ass here, where I don't know two shits about them. But gosh, I do. I heard NSYNC's getting back together for a song, and possibly the Super Bowl.
I've been hearing rumors of that too, but also it's supposed to be like a whole boy bands like
Get back together
show.
situation.
And I'll tell you right now, like I will be the first one watching that. Absolutely. I'm
I think
into
so.
it.
And it's funny because
Yeah.
NSYNC's probably the least appealing of the three,
I agree.
unless you
But I
throw
will
in.
say NSYNC, I think, had the most actual hits on the chart, and that is coming from a place of just horrible memory, not even there's no real backing to that statement. So I know that the boy band girls out there and boys are, probably cursing my name if I'm wrong, but I think they had the most hits on the chart, and I remember it driving me crazy because I was like, the Backstreet Boys are so much better. Like, give me a power ballad. I want those heartfelt slow jams, and Sync was a little bit more like upbeat, a little more fun. But now I've grown to really appreciate them after 20 years,
I used
30
to
years.
prefer NSYNC. Now I realize the error of my ways. Backstreet Boys are clearly better. And I mean, even that Backstreet's Back song, like the music
Mm.
video and it's in the
Mhm.
haunted house.
It's
Hell yeah.
spooky.
It's spooky. I
Yeah,
love it. Any
yeah,
group that's willing to get spooky, I love it. But yeah, NSYNC's
absolutely.
probably the least appealing of those three, unless you start throwing in like 98 Degrees, O Town,
Yeah.
Together. Now I put Together, maybe.
Well, and like not to be too graphic here to the group, but like I would easily
Uh
will say cuddle with any of the members of the Backstreet Boys, whereas NSYNC, mm-mm, mm-mm. I don't even think like Justin would be the only one, and even then, like I'm fine with Justin Timberlake, but like that ramen hair was not doing it for me. Not
Hmm.
not the look.
Yeah, JC's kind of a dork, but he's actually looking really good with gray hair. Have you seen him
He's
lately?
no, I saw him on that silly Meow Mix commercial. Have you seen that?
Yeah. No, I've not, but
Oh
good
gosh.
for him. So, dead silence. Um
So we've been talking about boy bands for the last
so
20 minutes.
so Donnie Wahlberg's like, "Bro, I mean, come on, let's look at statistics. You most likely killed your wife, right?"
I know. Do
And
we think it's a good approach for interrogation where he's just like,
you probably did it.
you're guilty.
I mean, it really is, Jamie really should have just asked for a lawyer before
Absolutely, he
any of this.
should have.
So it's not like he's being, making the soundest decisions either.
Hmm.
But so he goes back to this town and takes the doll with him. Why? But
It
whatever. Goes
it's
back to.
yeah,
Mhm.
go ahead.
So he goes back to his hometown of Ravensfair, which is. Well, I know it was shot somewhere in Toronto, but it could have been on a
Of
soundstage in
course.
Toronto. I don't know if any of that was like
Yeah.
actually like it all looked pretty fake, a lot of it. But
It does.
The
But at
nice
the same
thing,
time, it looks very like creepy and spooky and somehow impoverished and wealthy. So
right? I made a
it's
note about that. I was like, are the dolls murdering everybody? And is that what's responsible for tanking the economy? Or is it putting or is it just like putting all of that money into a giant puppet theater that you can only access via lake? I mean, I
well, there
like
was a
made it.
bridge.
There was a
There
bridge
used to be a
before that,
bridge.
but I made the note. Do you watch Parks and Rec much?
Yeah.
So I was thinking about Adam Scott's character when he was like, the mayor, city planner for the small town, and he puts in like an
Ice
ice
Town.
rink, yeah, Ice Town, and it just completely just like tanks the town. I was thinking
Yeah.
like this equivalent of like, no, we're gonna have this giant theater. It's gonna look
Yep.
beautiful. It's gonna be on the lake. It's gonna be bigger. It's gonna have more seats than the entirety of the town can fill. And they're like, sure, yeah, we're gonna have like Broadway shows, this and this.
Uh-huh.
He's like, no, 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 no. I know a ventriloquist, and everyone's gonna pack this theater for this ventriloquist, and
And she's the
and we're
creepiest
gonna
person.
we're gonna give her an upstairs vault for all of her dolls, and we're just gonna let her just argue with children on stage, which is pretty fun. But I
Well, the
curious
other
about that.
the other fun thing about the introduction of Raven's Fair, love the name of the town. But on the sign, the now entering Raven's Fair sign, it says a quiet place to live. If you were in a situation where people were being murdered over decades and decades with their tongues ripped out, you might consider maybe a different welcome sign. Maybe switch it up,
A
right?
little bit. And I'm glad you brought up that sign because as much as I thought the eye through the eye through the eye thing was stupid, I loved the sign and then it like goes into the sign and then it shows like him
Yes.
driving across the bridge
Yes.
because I just thought that was dumb, but I loved it. It was
They
like
do
that's
it
why I'm
they
like, but
do
it
it with the
works.
they do it with a map later in
Yeah.
the movie too, where it's like behind Marion and it like zooms in on the map and then you see Jamie driving along the road. Like just like odd things like that I'm like, how much of that budget did we really need?
Well, I wonder because it's like, I was listening to this podcast talking about Saw, and they're talking about like all these just kind of like weird things that they did because they didn't have the budget for it. So they would just go to these like weird transitions and this weird shit. And then you watch Dead Silence, where I'm like, okay, you all clearly have like 19 and a half more $1 million than you did last
Hmm.
time, but this movie looks the same. It's like y'all are doing like the
Yeah.
same shit. So I'm like, yes, it like looks a little cleaner and everything. But yeah, I mean, like, I'm watching Saw. That's a hard one to watch now. I don't know. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna let it go. My feelings about that movie. But yeah, geez, if I were Donnie Wahlberg and if I were a detective, I would beg to be on this case.
I
If
would
I'm
not. You're for sure gonna get murdered.
I
For sure.
know. Or you
Like
could
you have
be,
no chance.
yeah,
No
I know.
chance.
And I thought about that too, but it'd be really tempting if someone was telling me like, oh man, so we got this weird situation, man. Like, the husband's a lead subject, but or at least lead suspect. But yeah, this woman's tongue got ripped out, and then they found a ventriloquist dummy, and they're from some spooky town that has some poem that they know like only part of. I'd be
You're
like,
like, put me in, coach.
put me in, coach. I've got
um,
this one.
I, I think that okay, like going back to Jamie's terrible decisions. So he's traveling with Billy, which not in the trunk, just in the passenger seat. Like he is,
Why does he sit him up like that? Why?
exactly.
He does it in the
He
motel
would
too.
be locked up in the trunk or in that box within the trunk. He would not be sitting down comfortably just enjoying his road trip with me.
I would have
I
smashed that head wide open. And if case someone was like, "Oh, I meant to send that to you," I'd be like, USPS. What can you do, huh?"
yeah, there's no situation in which that dummy gets sent. But also, skipping a little bit ahead here when Donnie Wahlberg shows up and to collect Billy, he's like, I'm evidence. And I'm like, then why wasn't he in evidence? Why did Jamie still have him? Like, that
Dude, he
doesn't make
asks.
sense.
He asks again when he's like, "What is that?" What's the deal with this doll? And it's like, dude, he told you the whole thing. And you
Yeah.
even said, I'm not going to arrest a doll. I've arrested a lot of husbands, but not a doll. And then fast forward here to the motel, he's asking these same questions over and again. He is,
Yeah.
he might be a beautiful singer. He might be a bad boy, but the detective skills are a little lacking. But I do appreciate his whole kind of aesthetic. And I wonder if the shaving thing was his idea. Like, just like,
What is that? Like
I
what
want to, I want a
why did
quirk.
that need to be a part? Yeah, like what's that quirk for?
It's like how, like, Brad Pitt, like he's always like eating in like a lot of his movies, or it's like that.
Hmm.
That's a quirk that he, or maybe just in those Ocean's movies, I forget. But
I
I
never noticed.
and so I wonder if he was just like, hey man, this is gonna be my thing. I'm gonna have a beard that never stops and it just grows so fast.
I'm
So
just
I
gonna
always,
dry shave all
or
the
he just
time.
like, because that doesn't like feel good all the time to do
No.
that, like, so I don't know. So that's doesn't make sense. But
Where does that leave us?
yeah, so he goes over to see his dad because he wants to figure out, some clarity because he
Mm-hmm.
remembers a part of that rhyme and just somehow just deletes the rest of it from his brain. And he goes and sees his dad and then meets who he's kind of estranged from. Turns
Yeah.
out the dad was maybe trying to kind of keep him from the inevitable, but he meets his stepmother who introduces herself like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm your stepmother. You've never met me. And they
Yeah.
don't really like go too clearly into like why they never speak anymore, other than just like, oh, you don't know my dad. He just marries people and then they die. They all die. Did all of his wives die? Like, because that
So
alone is weird. That's his own ghost story, and he paints them out of the paintings.
I'm not gonna give the movie more credit than it deserves, but how my simplified version of their relationship is he's got a wealthy father who was cold to him growing up, sends him away to school, boarding school, whatever it is, because he's trying to protect him from Mary Shaw. And his mother passes away. He remarries the second wife. She passes away for some reason. And then he's got this young wife because Amber Valletta, she would have been probably in her mid to late 30s at this point.
She's a
Oldest would
model,
probably
right?
be, yeah, oh yeah, I love her. Um, she she couldn't be older than like 40, and he's looking like, I mean, he's dead, but he's looking like when he was alive, he would have been in his like late 60s, maybe.
Yeah. Hmm.
So a big sizable age difference there. So I mean, I don't know what Jamie's deal is. Like it's looking like a little bit of privilege going on there and then not a close relationship. So he's just like, I'm just gonna get out of town with my lovely wife and start a new beginning, a new journey somewhere else outside of Raven's Fair where there's creepy poems.
I love all of the extra context that you're providing for
Right? Like, does
this.
that feel it feels right? It feels
That's
right.
and you know
I
what?
didn't read the script, but
That does feel pretty good. And you know what? I'm just gonna go and just carry that with me from here on out. Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah.
Problem solved.
But yeah, so but yeah, I'm just like, I don't know, like if he and then all of a sudden, like, he knows the dolls are bad. So then he talks to his dad being like, oh yeah, I remember that poem, beware the stare of Mary Shaw, something something full of dolls. And then if you scream, I should know this. I do know it. I just don't want to repeat all of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it well again, it's just like he just like knows more and more as each like unless it's all just coming back to him and it's like I don't know, it just feels like if so many people were fucking dead, like when did he leave that town? And he would have remembered this because when did she start murdering people from beyond the grave? Probably
Probably
pretty
pretty
soon
soon
after.
after. Yeah, I mean, like
So
if you're a vengeful ghost, how long does it really take to make a plan? Like you're running off of pure rage.
you're ready to
So
go,
yeah,
like when
you've got your whole plan is laid out for you by Satan, whoever, the blueprints are there.
did
We've
Freddy
heard this story
Krueger,
time and time again.
I should know this, did Freddy Krueger like wait like 8 years, like when everyone was in high school to start doing his shit, or did he start killing kids right after?
No, I feel like
He waited.
he waited. Yeah, like he
Yeah.
was like lying dormant for some reason, but
He
um
mulled it over and then just let it sit and then revisited it and
yeah, I
decided,
mean
yep,
that's
I'm gonna
almost
do this.
playing the long con is probably better because then everybody thinks they're safe. They all have kids, you know, they're
Yeah,
like, "Oh, we're going to raise our kids, maybe we'll have second children and you know, go from there."
sure. I and the other thing, the only other thing I can think of is that all the wives are dead because Mary Shaw kept killing them. Because it also killed like their wives, you know. He explains at the end, she's like, "Oh, you know,
Well, because
you."
she was pregnant though. So
Well,
she
no,
had
I'm talking about the dad's wife, multiple wives. Each of them were killed by Mary Shaw. That'd be the only thing I could think of, because otherwise, like,
I think that's possible,
and does he paint them
but
out because they switch and like they just look like dummies and stuff in each of the, like she
ooh,
swaps them out? Am I giving the movie too much credit here? Like, I wish
I
they
think
just.
we both are.
Mm,
And that's the thing. Like the writing here is not ironclad. Like
no.
it's fun. There's enough story for it to make fun sense, and the scares are you know enjoyable. So that's what I'll the way that the plot moves is interesting because so from here he's like he's talking to his dad. Important to note that his dad had a stroke, so he is in that wheelchair um
He doesn't fight.
for
He's a different person now.
yeah,
Like,
like what does that even mean? Yeah, like they're trying to build this narrative of him maybe just being a bad dad. Um, but it, then it like cuts to Jamie at the funeral, right? We're going through. Oh no, he meets Henry.
yeah, so he goes and, arranges,
Hmm.
does the funeral arrangements for Henry, who is the mortician,
Hmm.
along with a couple side things that a mortician does not do. Um, like,
Henry,
but
I think Henry is my favorite in the movie. Um, yeah, he's a mortician, but he also is picking up bodies, which would be more of a coroner job.
well, I get, the coroner, or, there's, if they do an autopsy or whatever, they would do that, and then when everything was all kind of said and they were ready to just bury the body, they would just send it then to the mortician, which would be Henry. So that's why I
Hmm.
don't understand why he's all being like investigative and shit, where he's like has the giant ass camera and like taking pictures of her, because like, why do you need to do that? And then later on, like, why is he taking pictures? Like, who's letting him in all of these crime scenes taking
Well,
pictures?
that's what I took a note of that as well because I was like, wait, why is he taking photos? So if he was taking the photo of her actually in the mortuary, that actually makes a little bit more sense because then he has like a before and after photo of like his work. But I'm assuming that bitch is going to be closed casket
just to sh-
because
just show
like
just to show
like
at the late night infomercials, like in between the weight loss things, of just being like, look what this bitch used to look like, just with
yeah,
her
but he's
jaw
like
hanging out, and then look what she looks like now, and she just kind of like
yeah,
stapled
because
back together.
he says, well, I have to take pictures. And
It's
I'm
part
like,
of my job.
do you? I'm like, isn't that for like the people like that are on the crime scene, like the police and maybe the coroner? But who knows? If it's a smaller town, maybe he's both the coroner and the mortician, and he's, you know, playing both of those roles.
So so he makes, so Henry lets him know this whole thing about Mary Shaw back in the 40s, back when this puppet theater was thriving, and the gem of this town. And look, I don't think the kid deserved what happened to him, but have you ever been to like a fucking show and there's some dipshit fucking heckler who like thinks he's like fucking smart,
Mhm.
and everyone's like, dude, come on. And like, usually like the host or the comedian or whatever is good enough to kind of like work around it or whatever, but sometimes you're just like, dude, like get out of here. And so I'm like, what, that kid's probably was probably going to grow up to be one of those guys, one of those people that like talks during movies, like in the theater and shit, like with his phone out.
We talk during movies.
Well, not in the
In
movie
the theater.
theater.
In the theater, absolutely.
I
Not full
whisper.
volume, not full volume. It's
I
a
will.
whisper.
I may have turned to you once during Scream 6 just to say how it was the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. I it's so sure, but but I don't make a habit out of it, whereas this kid
No, no.
clearly, so I think but that being said, like let's it's not like that remake of Friday or right remake of Nightmare on Elm Street where there's like some
Mm,
sort of like hesitation on like was Freddy Krueger actually like a monster. This woman murdered this child and turned him into a doll or turned him into
okay.
a ventriloquist dummy. It's pretty bad.
This is the thing. So this whole flashback storytelling sequence is my favorite part. My favorite part of this movie. I
No.
Mary Shaw legitimately creeps me the fuck out. That woman's face, that actress that plays her, I didn't look up her name. Her she is creepy. And there is no way that I would be sitting in that theater as a kid, like when little Henry finds Billy underneath his seat. Like their whole back and forth of her and the doll arguing about that kid, saying that he could see her lips move. That shit is awesome. Like that's where this movie is like in full form, doing all the right things. But I absolutely agree. Mary, what right, what right do you have to exact revenge, vengeance, whatever you want to call it, on this whole lineage of people because they came after you because there was a missing boy and ripped out your tongue? If you had not turned that missing boy into a fucking marionette, then yes, yes, by all means, kill
Kill
them
them
all,
all.
get them all. They deserve it. You did nothing wrong, but guess what? She did. He murdered that boy and turned him into the world's creepiest doll. So what revenge is there to have? Like she got her comeuppance. Like
It
there
just
it is.
reminds me where like it just you're just finding out this whole story because it even like questions it a little bit, just like, all right, just the kid went missing and they blamed her for it and ripped out her
Yeah.
tongue and this and this and this as she was screaming, and then you're like thinking like, oh fuck, okay, we yeah, I'm paying for the sin. He says I'm paying for the sins of my fathers, but what, she fucking killed that child.
Yeah.
Like
And
it was
like
annoying, but
go like the other piece to this that is so fascinating to me is that this woman wrote a will and seemingly has no relatives, but she's being having over 100 dolls buried. Who's funding this? Who's paying for it? And she wants to be turned into a living doll. Now, for the record, I am almost 100% sure that just because you put that in your will doesn't mean that the mortician of the town is just gonna be like, well, I guess I have to turn her into a doll.
I'm pretty
It
sure.
says
I
it
think
says it in
that's
the paperwork.
I think that's the law. I think it's like, oh fuck, if it's in the will,
You have
I
to
think
do it.
I think I got to do it. I'm like, no, you throw her and all those dolls in the fucking trash. What are you doing
But
here?
I love the way she looks
I love
as
it.
a
She looks
doll when Henry like finds her and she falls over and she's standing there smiling. She is delightfully creepy.
delightfully. That the kid version of Henry, I recognized him from It Follows.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Much
good
younger
for,
here.
so also showing up in some big horror movies. Well, at least one that's critically acclaimed, and
Was
then
he in
this one.
It as well?
He was in It Follows.
But wait, was is he not one of the kids in
No, but I know who you because he looks like one of them, but he's not that one. He was also in
I think
he's
you're
on a
right.
Netflix
Yeah.
show too. Um, yeah, jeez.
That might be where I'm placing him from. But yeah, that whole situation, that whole flashback and story there is just wild. And poor Henry. Like nothing that happens to him does he deserve. And also like to back it up a little bit on why Jamie is a piece of shit.
Mhm.
The way that he is interrogating this elderly woman and her husband, like
And her dead
calm
raven
down.
or
Calm down.
crow.
Yeah, leave her crow alone. Like he's he's like bringing that doll to their house and then he leaves it there. What? What? You carried it all the way from your home after it murdered your wife and then you leave it with this sweet couple?
I know. I'm like, and I was thinking like, I bet Mary Shaw probably wasn't going to kill Henry at first. If anything, Henry, yeah, she was being a little spooky to him, but
Yeah.
Henry is the son of the only person that did what she wanted.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll turn you
No,
into a
he
doll.
he's
His mortician's just like, yeah, I like to fuck around. Yeah, let me see. Let me look at this weird book. Let me see. I can turn you into a
yeah,
doll.
exactly. Like I bet he was just like some kind of weirdo and he did what she asked and like poor Henry. Like that's just not cool. Again, Mary being unreasonable in her choices, pre and post death.
Yeah.
So so that's a fun that's a fun little sequence there. And then you've got Jamie actually going over to the theater,
Right. Yeah,
which
just
brings me
like
to my next question. Who left that boat there? It's in good condition. It looks fairly clean and new. Somebody's taking care of that boat. Did the teenagers go to like make out there
probably.
to go drink?
Yeah. It's like those like abandoned like you know, state penitentiaries or something, that just
Yeah.
still exist. I'm sure probably, fucking Ghost Adventures have been there at some point, like that would be the place they would go. So I'm sure they're probably there, pounding natty lights and yelling at Mary Shaw.
I would love to see a this just popped into my head because you said that. I would love to see a series where guys like that go to these pretend like fictional locations and but
Like
giving the
a
narrative that they're real and these are real places. Like we're going to Ravens Fair and we're going to go to the old theater where Mary Shaw and like shouting out. That would be fun. I would I'd pay to see that.
You're like describing the plot of Halloween Resurrection. And no, it was not fun at all.
Wow.
It was terrible.
That's a stretch. I
It's
think
a
my
little bit of
idea
a
was a little
stretch.
better.
I was like, you're describing
Wow.
um
Cruel comparison.
yeah, thank you. So, geez, not that we necessarily need to follow this, but yeah, oh my god, where do we geez, yeah, so he goes to the
He's going
theater,
to the
finds all the
theater.
designs and shit. He doesn't find
Hmm.
the kid yet. That's the second time he goes back, but he goes back
Yeah.
over to his dad, and that's the soup
Hmm.
scene where he's
Hmm.
like, you know, that's where he finds out that like, oh, it was my great uncle that was the kid that disappeared,
Hmm.
and that he's now in a line of yeah, like, oh, I was just trying to keep you safe, but maybe I realized that maybe we all need to meet our fate, which I'm just like, whoa, wait, we don't need to do that either. Let's work together, let's be
Yeah, let's
productive,
solve
let's
this.
let's be let's be proactive, and let's
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, let's how do we build a solution, how are we solution oriented here?
Yeah.
So my throat or so my tongue does not get ripped out, even though like I know there's like some spooky stuff that happened in like the motel, like with him, where like he sees her for a little bit, but like
Hmm.
if all you have to tell me to do is not scream, I think I could I think I could I think it'd be okay. I mean, it'd be really annoying, and she would just probably just try to like freak me out all the time.
Oh
But once you
yeah.
see enough
I
of it,
mean,
I get desensitized.
you say that, but like all she would have to do for me is just like show up behind me while I'm fucking brushing my teeth and I would scream. That'd be it for me. Like,
Do you? Yeah, are you? You're the type that screams when you're scared or when you're startled.
well, and it also like what are the rules here? Because when
Mm,
they yell out people's names or things like that, when he's like, Jamie, Jamie, that's not screaming, that's yelling. But then he falls, like skipping ahead a little bit here, but
right.
Donnie Wahlberg, he falls and he screams because he's falling, not because of Mary Shaw. I'm like, oh, okay, so you just get to just jump in on anyone's screams for any reason, scream often. But if someone sneaks up on me, I might do a loud, like, exclamation of some kind. Hopefully, I'd yell "fuck" instead, so then that way it wouldn't be a scream. But
Right. Then it wouldn't count.
um,
I don't think.
yeah, but I think she could get me for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not feeling confident with that game.
This movie does breeze by pretty quick because really he just kind of just goes back and forth, back and forth. Like he
Mm-hmm.
goes whether it's the
Mm-hmm.
hotel to the house, back to the hotel,
Mm-hmm.
to the theater to the house, back to the theater, and then to Henry's place, and then back to the house. Essentially, is
Yeah.
the point of this or the plot of this movie because they you have why did he need to be eating? Like, why did the dad need to be eating soup?
Well, I mean, to be more convincing that he's alive, like he's got to be doing some convincing things. I will give
But he's
credit to
not.
that actor. If you, when you're watching it, knowing that he is not a living person, the way that he lifts his eyebrows and looks at her and like his stiff movements and how his expressions work, like he's giving me like some ventriloquist dummy vibes. Like
It's
I
pretty
I
good.
was I was pretty impressed by him.
I guess I just didn't need to see like, because first of
The
all, it
soup
wasn't
in the
like,
bowl going down.
yeah, I know, I thought that was good. I like that, but I just, um, I don't think it was necessary to like convince him. No, he's human. No, the fact that he's talking means that he's human, and even then, it's not like he's even like feeding himself. Like she is feeding him. He is just opening
Yeah.
his mouth and just swallowing, and so you're
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, that's a distinctly human thing. Like I just feel like I didn't really need that, but I did think it was
Yeah.
funny just to see on the backside where you just see the soup just fall into a little bowl, and you're just like,
Yeah.
it's still a good soup. Maybe. Oh, I guess it's been through a dead
No,
body, so she
I
probably
I
wouldn't
don't I don't know that I'd want to eat it.
eat that
Um,
soup. I just imagine her just because no one else is living in that house, so like she must have made that soup, right?
yeah, absolutely. She made the soup.
Where does she go? Like, does she go like get the ingredients somewhere and like just goes like shopping?
Yeah, I'm under the impression that she's just been living a normal life other than the revenge killing.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Everybody's got to eat, and she can't just
Yeah.
eat takeout all the time.
So she so he's like, all right, now I got to figure out what's going on. And then Henry calls, or he's on his way out. He sees Donnie Wahlberg,
Hmm.
who's like, hey, bro, like, come on, man,
He's
I
like,
need
I'm
to
gonna
fucking.
arrest you.
Yeah. So he just pushes Wahlberg down. He just falls over. And because he gets this static call from Henry being like, oh, I can prove it. Just come to the theater. And I'm like, how could you prove that I didn't kill my wife at the theater? Unless
Yeah.
you're going to be like presenting to the cops this Mary Shaw story and be like, no, we've got books
Yeah.
and a clown doll to prove it.
Well, and is Jamie at this
Uh,
point just completely forgetting that he knows he heard his wife's voice after she died. And then you're
mhm.
getting this suspicious phone call from a man that really didn't want to help you at all and was like being generous by telling you a quick story. All of a sudden is investigating at the theater on your behalf and is like, come meet me here. Like that is highly suspicious. I am not, I don't think I would fall for that at all. But also, okay, this is something I didn't think of until just this very moment.
Mhm.
Nobody went into this theater after Mary Shaw died and got attacked and found that boy or her book or any of her bullshit.
Nothing was like hiding it,
Nothing.
you know?
Yeah, he's just under a sheet. He's just been there.
Yeah.
No one looked.
No one thought to just check the theater.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty good. But yeah, I did like how easy I think I'm allowed to forgive a lot of stuff that happens in this movie because I know that Jamie is dumb. And so and
He is.
Mary Shaw knows that Jamie's just dumb as a fucking
Yeah.
brick.
She's
And
like, he's not even gonna notice that his dad is dead.
yeah, and she even says like
Hail.
he's not quite himself anymore. And like she'll even say like dumb shit like that, like really obvious things where I'm like, oh, he's a
Yeah.
dummy.
Yeah.
Or like,
She's
oh, he's
she's she's messing with him hard.
but she knows he's dumb. That's why it makes it kind of fun. That's why she was like,
Yeah.
oh, I was probably gonna kill the unborn baby last, but no, I kind of want to save you because this is pretty fun because you're a fucking idiot. So so he goes back and Donnie Wahlberg chases after him. And this is where you get your kind of like
I would
pseudo
have invited
climax
him.
of the movie. I know, I'd be like, come with me. You're gonna see proof. Let's go. But
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
well,
he probably would have said no, but
he's like, no,
um
dude, I need to arrest you. Like, can we stop with this?
yeah. What business does he have carrying around a shotgun instead of like wouldn't
Some
a cop
service
on the
pistol.
go like yeah, just have like a small like 9 millimeter or something like that rather than
I
that
don't know.
giant ass shotgun? That feels unnecessary.
Yeah, I mean, it just wouldn't look as cool, I suppose. I do like the idea of just bringing in shotgun and taking out ventriloquist. I feel like that'd be a great video game level, just kind of
Mm.
going through that. I did like just really quick going back a little bit, just because you have this weird like side cut, which like they did in like Saw movies. Like they'll like talk about this, and then it'll show you this quick brief background thing. But I did like
Yeah.
when Donnie Wahlberg was saying like all the dolls have been exhumed, and then it quick just cuts to him just holding a shovel and just scratching his head under with
Like what?
surrounded by all these tiny
What?
coffins, and he's like,
He
oh,
dug up all the tiny coffins. I'd get to like the fifth one and be like, okay, I'm gonna assume that all these are empty.
I'm just gonna go ahead and assume, yeah, that a lot of them are gone. And but I did think that was pretty good. So they do run back to the
Hmm.
theater, and then
Hmm.
this is where, yeah, they start finding like all the extra shit, all the dolls. Did you see the little jigsaw doll hiding in the corner?
I never knew that, and I read that on the IMDb trivia, but I didn't notice him. I'll have to go back and see.
This is the
Which
first time I actually looked, but
isn't
he was.
his name unofficially Billy as well?
It could be. I don't know. I don't. I know
Okay.
so little about those movies, so that like that could be. That could
Someone
be
will have
true.
to let me know, but I was listening to a podcast and they said that like he was like retroactively named something, and I think it was Billy,
Hmm.
a little puppet.
Yeah, I did. Did love that kid doll.
I love the
Ventriloquist.
kid doll.
Oh, it's so good.
Okay, anyone that was previously human being turned into a doll in this movie looks great. Like it's
Yeah,
scary but fun, and like just even like the flashbacks of like her like feeding the dead boy and being like
yeah,
doing his voice and being like, I love you, mommy. I was like, that's fucked up. This shit is fucked up. Like that kid
yeah,
is dead. And he's not a ventriloquist dummy though. He's a marionette.
yeah.
He's got like his little strings. And I'm like, Jamie, why
Stop
are you
touching it.
fucking with this? Like, get your hands off of that. Stop playing piano. Stop fucking with everything. You have a death wish. Terrible
and then
decisions.
and then you see all these dolls, then you see the saw doll hanging out, you've and then you start hearing like Henry's voice being like, "Oh, I'm here, I'm hiding," and then they're just like, "Where are you, Henry?" Of course, no one's putting two together. Like, okay, Henry's clearly dead,
Yeah,
and
this was a trap.
he didn't see right through it during the phone call.
Yeah,
Certainly is
yeah.
barely seeing through it here, and then you're just like, "Why is there a clown?" just to be like, let's put a
I
clown one.
love that clown doll, but yeah, why did she make that? He doesn't really match the vibe of the other old timey dolls, but
Reminds me of the clown from the I want to say it was the first episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark,
oh wow,
which is a good
I
one.
love I love Are You Afraid of the Dark?
All right, they had like it was like a clown, but there was like a clown video game, and maybe the video game was haunted. I don't know. I don't want to.
I don't
I could.
remember. We might need to see if we can find that to
Yeah,
watch. Um, yeah, the clown is super creepy, and why when that clown says like come closer and I'll tell you why I killed your wife.
no,
No, no, you
no.
can tell me from here. We're at a safe distance.
Yeah,
Like
you're not.
I'll whisper it to you. I think it even says that.
Like, I
Like,
don't care that much of figuring out exactly why. I think I can put this all together. It's probably something to do with this fucking doll situation and Mary Shaw being angry and ripping out throats.
yeah,
Okay, I get
I
it.
don't need to know.
Like,
At that point, she's dead. We're done. Like, I
yeah,
thought that clown was gonna bite his face off.
why revisit the past? Who cares? It's like,
Yeah.
just let it go.
I'm
Um,
assuming you have some revenge plot that just didn't work in my favor.
Now, one thing that the clown says that bothers me, and
Mm.
it's a trope that I've been seeing in some horror movies. I saw it most recently in the Evil Dead Rise,
I had a
the
feeling you
last
were gonna bring
one,
this part up. Yeah.
is fucking pregnancy shit. And this idea that, when they say, like, oh, you weren't the last Ashen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was, it was inside her. So you're saying that,
Mm-hmm.
he impregnated her or whatever. And so seeing her at the beginning of this movie, how many weeks do you think she is?
Oh, she's like freshly pregnant. Like maybe she missed her first or second period. Now, given every woman's body is different, and
Right.
she's a very thin and she looks tall too. So like
Mm-hmm.
she may not show for a while, but if he doesn't know and she's that size, I would say 8 weeks tops,
And
8 to 10 weeks.
the challenge, and why I'm kind of relating this to like that Evil Dead Rise movie, is it, I think unintentionally, both these movies and some others, unfortunately, tackle a very politicized
Mm-hmm.
thing and kind of
Mm-hmm.
take us and unintentionally take a stance on it.
Yeah.
Now, this idea that there is, in Evil Dead Rise, she's pregnant, very early pregnant. She just finds out.
Mm-hmm.
And, later it's like, oh, there's two souls inside you. And you're just like,
You're
whoa,
like souls.
that's taking that's making a choice. And, um, well, it's not pro-choice, but it's
No,
the
I
kind
said
of the
that's
stance
making a
there.
choice.
Well, I was making
There.
a
Oh,
dumb,
I see. I
a
see.
dumb joke.
Okay. I don't.
Um,
Yeah, dumb
but
joke.
I was just like, I don't know. I just kind of I rolled my eyes there, and then so just one for that. Just like that's,
Well,
I wish they
okay.
wouldn't do that, and especially when you frame it for something horrific, like in a horror.
Yeah.
It's very like, oh wow, this is a very like anti-choice or pro-life, however you want to call it.
Well,
It's
it's
weird.
taking a stance of, you know, pregnancy counts. So in this situation, like she's got his unborn child in her. So now she is going to be a victim of this because like that is a life. So I do think it's claiming a stance. But okay, here's my counter argument that is not like I totally agree with what you're saying because I remember that moment in Evil Dead Rise and I was like, oh, two
I don't
souls.
think you go ahead.
Are you going to try to guess what I'm going to say? You'll never guess it.
No, but I have something awful I was gonna say.
Okay. Both of these movies were written by men.
Yeah.
So that's the other issue too. Like whenever you factor in, even if they're fathers, when you factor in men writing about a pregnant character, they almost always do something wrong in their writing. And like that's probably I think that's the biggest mistake that they can make, really, because now you're putting a moral choice on that woman, you're putting a moral choice on your movie, you're putting a moral choice on your audience. Like you're really digging deeper than you think you are. But that's my argument there, is that because this is written by men, I don't even think they fucking realize that they're doing it. They're not
Exactly.
even thinking about it, and that's part of the problem. So like you're like, oh, I guess we can excuse it because they're stupid men writing pregnant characters. But then you're like, no, that's the problem. You're not thinking about how you're affecting people's perception of when a life is created, when a life is formed. Who makes that choice? Mary Shaw makes that choice? Oh,
Well,
she,
and that's what I was
what?
gonna say, is maybe we should agree that it is not, a life becomes a life when it has a tongue to rip out.
That's a good bar for this specifically. Absolutely. When it
Yeah.
has a tongue to, I like that.
So so okay, where were we at the movie? So Donnie Wahlberg gets his tongue ripped out. Jamie is running around, falls through the thing into the water. He closes his mouth so he doesn't scream, and he is able to escape and ultimately sees the theater ablaze.
But he
But
notices that Billy is missing.
he remembers that Billy is still missing,
Hmm.
right? So that's when he goes back to Henry's to get the doll back, thinking it's still there, finds Henry very dead.
With
um
Marion.
and poor Marion, who's, she knew, she was trying her best,
I
but she was dealing with her own
I want to
business.
know more. I want to know more about Marion. Like, why is that just like what are we dealing with here? We know nothing about her mental state or why it's in the condition that it's in.
Like, was she like the lone
Um,
survivor of like a family? Like maybe she's
yeah,
like an adopted child into one of the
exactly.
families that was involved. So and then
Yeah,
Mary Shaw like looked at like the birth records and was like, oh, no, 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 you're good.
you're good.
You can
I
scream all day, sweetheart, you're good.
Yeah, you literally could have given me like a two-sentence reason why Marianne is just safe in this situation. Maybe it's because she takes it seriously.
Yeah.
Like she's like, no, I said I'm not going to talk about Mary Shaw, and I'm going to have a conversation with this fucking doll, and we're going to try to talk things out. So she's acknowledging things that no one else is.
Yeah,
But
just have a
I
summit
felt
to kind of clear the air,
I feel really bad for her because like Henry was taking care of her. Now she's just by herself. Like what
Yeah, who
what
knows
is
what happens
Marion
to
gonna
her.
do? Her story is quite sad.
So I feel like the movie kind of ends at like a, I don't know, it kind of sputters towards the end here, because you
Mhm.
have that and he's like, oh, okay, but then it was like the dad was here, he came and
Yeah, I was like,
took the
what?
doll, and I'm like, okay, why? Like, you could have said like anybody. You could say like Mary Shaw took the doll, or you could have said that it was the stepmom or whatever. Just
Yeah.
start building up that like, oh, it's the stepmom that did it. And
Yeah, why
yeah,
was it the dad? That part I will never understand because she says she saw that he did it and he can't get up and walk around
no
on his
reasons.
own.
So he heads
Yeah.
back and quickly, finds out that, oh yeah, oh, my yeah, my dad is he's basically just has a like, it's like creating the perfect doll. Like, she just
Carve
like
him out, put a stick.
put a stick in there and up its head,
Yeah.
just turn the stick. Like, that's all. Is that the perfect that's the perfect design? I guess you don't see
Yeah.
the whole book, so I didn't see
Yeah,
that
there's
chapter.
definitely there's definitely a lot of magic going on here because those facial expressions like are not
Pretty
being
good.
controlled by the stick. Like it, and why isn't he rotting? Like why wouldn't he be rotten by then? Like has he been embalmed? And then how would his
Yeah.
face move if it was? So there's a
Why would
lot of I
you?
think there's a lot of magic that is involved in this situation that we're, just we just
but
have to accept.
but not like a practical magic, like with
Not a practical match. No, no Nicole Kidman here.
some dances in the
Um,
kitchen with your witchy pals.
wait, what my the other piece is what is the situation with the stepmom? She's not a doll. She's a
She
human.
she is Mary Shaw.
But yes, but like one, how? And
I don't.
two, was she born and then became Mary Shaw, or did she create a body out of nothing? Like, how did this woman come to be, and how did she come to be possessed? Because she drew her as a sketch. So maybe she just possessed some poor woman. I don't know.
Or she just created this body of like a model, and then it's like, what's the problem? No harm, no foul. Like, you're just like, oh, now I get to like, experience life as this beautiful woman, and she's beautiful
It's a world
before
famous
in her own
knife.
way. Yeah, and just like, I don't know, so it's not that big a deal. But there was another shot there, another great one of Mary Shaw, like when she's like has her arms stretched and she's coming through the window and she's doing that
Mm-hmm.
thing, she's coming.
Because she's
All
trying to
of
get him
that,
to scream. Yeah.
all of that looks great. I love
Yeah.
that. I
All the shots of her are so scary, and it really it
pretty
really makes me
effective.
think about like other films that have similar characters or like scary, witchy women that are like CGI, and I'm like, why? Like she looks so good. They probably layered some shit on top of her, but like it looks mostly practical. And
Except
she
for when she
looks
was like,
terrifying.
except for like earlier in the theater when she was like, her face was like kind of in her like morphed onto like the dolls' faces,
Oh, that's the
that
worst.
was so
That
bad.
looks terrible.
That's why I'm
That
like,
looks so
everything looks
terrible. Why did they even need to do that? Like, I
no
feel like they
reason.
could have just had the dolls just moving or like trying to like jump out at them and be like, oh, like she's in the dolls. Like, we didn't need to see her face like morphing. That looked really shitty. That's probably it's definitely the least effective like scare in this movie.
But then pretty quickly, as soon as he realizes that his dad's a doll, he turns around and the stepmom's there, and she becomes Mary Shaw, and then he
Yeah.
screams. He goes, ah, and then and then it
Yeah.
cuts
It
to
was just too much. He was like, that was just too many hits in a
too
row.
many. And so then it cuts to him doing the he's dead, and they're cutting to that, like, beware the stare of Mary Shaw, this and this and this, and then it's showing like the paintings of everybody. And did you think that Jamie's painting looked nothing like him?
Yeah, it looked nothing like him. It took
Everybody
me a sec. I
else,
was like, who is that?
yeah, everybody
But then
else
you see
like
the
looks like
wife.
him.
Yeah, then
Yeah,
you see the wife and you're like, oh, that was supposed to be Jamie.
yeah, so that wasn't really
Yeah.
a good one. And I don't remember if I saw Mark Wahlberg, or sorry, Donnie Wahlberg painting, but
I think he was there, yeah.
oh, good. Oh, good for
And the
him.
dad doesn't have the little like the lines on
Which
the
doesn't make
jaw,
sense.
which I thought, yeah, I was like, well, that's interesting. Like he was the most literal doll like of the group.
Right. He
So
was the one that was like actually became a doll. So
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
But
Interesting stuff.
that kind of deflating stutter ends our movie. Dead silence.
I
Um
I before we really wrap it up, I do like the whole playback when they do the reveal of the dad, where
yeah.
they show her throat even like moving. Like I don't know if when you watched it the second time, you would like very carefully watching her throat. I still don't notice it.
Mm, yeah,
So I
that
don't
makes
know if they
sense.
just add that in later so that you're not thrown off. But the arm placement and like how close she is to him and when he moves and how he moves is all very lined up. I thought that was a fun little reveal.
Yeah. I like to see him. And like I said, like I was saying at the top of the episode, I think you have a lot of questions because a lot of things don't make sense. But then, does it really have to? It's fun asking the questions, but
Yeah.
ultimately, I had a lot of fun with this movie. And before we hop into the boo scores, is there anything else you want to say? You know, just about this movie.
Yeah, there is.
Okay,
I really thought that this would be one that would have multiple taglines because
I knew you'd be
come
prepared.
on. Come on. The premise like you would at least 7. 7 seems to be the max is
Yeah,
what I'm finding. It only has one. It has one tagline.
scream you die kind of situation.
You scream, you die.
Oh,
That's it.
I must have read it somewhere.
Oh, so I was a little bummed out. I was hoping for
Hmm.
more, but and I
Yeah,
was
like
trying to think something clever, like as if I was in that room and was like, okay, what could we, say here? But I was coming up with nothing, and they must have felt the same way. You have
Yeah.
any?
I mean, there's that, I feel like everyone says who's the dummy now kind of situation.
Mm.
Um,
I do like when she says that. Who's the dummy now? That's pretty scary. That would have been fun. That would have been a fun tagline.
yeah, I would say Jeez, I can't come up.
I think that was a good that was a good one. I'll take one. So only one tagline for this movie, and I was really hopeful that this would be a heavy tagline movie.
I think really encourage y'all if you can come up with some good taglines for Dead Silence,
Mm,
please let us know.
yeah. Puns welcome and encouraged.
Yeah. No but no strings attached.
Oh geez.
Ayo, ayo. So I'm gonna hop right into my boost score. You want me to start?
I do. I am so curious what your score is.
I was struggling with this. I did go a half boo higher than I was originally. I was originally going to start with
Ah.
I was originally going to start with 2.5, which is good. It's still a good, I still think anything
Mhm,
higher than
mhm.
I think 2 and higher is good. But I'm just going to give it a 3. I liked this movie a lot. I think that it's of course very dumb, and a lot of the
Yeah.
acting is really bad, and a lot of the things I don't like about Saw do show up in here, just like in some of
Mm,
the editing and the shots and some of the directorial choices there.
fair.
But it's just you just I'm not going to use that word I used earlier, but I just love fucking dolls. I love this. I love just mean doll movies coming to life. I like puppet movies, which are great. I mean, at least the first few Puppet Masters are classic. It gets a little
I
weird
like
after that,
I like the first two, and I'm fine with the third.
but just like Night of the Living Dummy, that all those Goosebump books are always a classic. I love
Did you ever see, this doesn't have to do with dummies, but it has to do with living dolls, and this is a movie I've seen way too many times because I had it on VHS. Had you ever watched a movie called Dolly Dearest?
that sounds familiar.
I might make you
Uh,
watch that one. I it
yeah,
might be we might need to do it.
if you haven't already. That sounds good. And then there's yeah, I don't know. Yeah, and just shout out your favorite doll movies. It can be a puppet, it
Hmm.
can be a regular ass doll. That's fine too. There's some good ones. There's also a lot of real bad ones.
There's some good ones and there is some real trash out there. I think we've watched maybe a handful of them.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So
Cuz that's
three.
yeah, so what do you got?
What made you raise it the 0.5?
Just because I love dolls and I love this whole situation. I love the aesthetic of it. I love just those weird small towns. One thing I really love about living in Washington State is I feel like there are a lot of those towns
Mm-hmm.
outside of, you just go, you know, 2 hour radius outside of Seattle, I mean, even into the south, like on some of the into the islands and all that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a lot of like one road towns. There's at least like a
Mm.
dozen of them I know that I've been through, and I just love that aesthetic. I think like it didn't have to be a good twist, I don't care, but like I just like people being turned into puppets. It's pretty fun.
Oh yeah.
And I thought yeah, I don't know, just thought the whole thing was pretty fun, pretty self-contained. I liked it. It's just a good movie. I would recommend it. Um, I think to most people that want like a pretty harmless, fun, spooky experience, because it's still at the end of the day, yeah, there's some like shocking things, I guess, a little bit, but ultimately it's still just silly more than anything else. It takes itself
Yeah.
much more seriously than say like the later like Chucky movies do. But I mean, I don't
Mm-hmm.
think this movie's particularly scary. Outside of like, I think Mary Shaw looking really good, and I like to
I
say
think
that
it's
that makeup.
scary.
Yeah,
I think the dummies are actually less scary than she is. I find her very scary.
I would have liked more diversity with the dolls,
I
like
agree.
because you have like the clown one, and then I think most of them all just kind of look the
Hmm.
same. So unless they
And
were all just
the clown's pretty scary.
yeah, clown's fun.
I like that shot of her hands over the clown's face and she's kind of lifting it up. Like you can tell she's like, "Oh, this is going to get them to scream."
Yeah,
Like she's like, "If this doesn't do it, I don't know what will." Um okay. I I had thought about my rating for this one in advance, not going to lie. Um I've seen this movie more times than I am aware of, probably. I think I watch it every couple of years. And I'm giving it half a boo just for Donnie. Donnie Wahlberg.
The IL award.
He gets a little IL for me. So he gets half a boo for that. I'm also gonna give it a 3. I think it's just above 2.5, and I think it's the haunted toy aspect that really locks it in for me. Like if it was just a ghost story with just Mary Shaw, it probably would be under a 3.
Yeah, you throw the doll situation or the puppet
Mhm,
situation in, it makes it
mhm.
much more palatable for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, just like it's just a good. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, people, I get why people think this movie's trash, but great people can have trash opinions too. So
Yeah.
okay,
And
they don't have to like it.
again, like, thinking about horror subgenres, if it's not your thing, like if the dolls aren't like a thing for you, I could see why you wouldn't like this movie. Um, that totally makes sense. But I think it's good fun. There's no one that you're like not rooting for to die, really. So maybe except for poor Henry. I liked
Yeah,
Henry.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. To Henry.
Yeah. Cheers to him. Um,
Um, I don't
yeah.
know. One last little thing.
We talked about this movie way longer than I thought we would. Because
We
it is
always,
an hour and 29 minutes, I think, with credits.
yeah, we always do. Um, so, but thanks everybody for sticking through. I think one thing just
Yeah.
before wrapping up. Have you ever seen a ventriloquist before, like live?
No, absolutely not. I will never.
Yeah, I hear that. The only time I ever saw a ventriloquist was one of my like he lived a few blocks from me in the housing complex I was in, but I remember he at our like school talent show in elementary school, so I couldn't have been any older than 10. Um he had a ventriloquist dummy and did like a ventriloquist act, and people just ate it up. And I don't know, it's like,
Really?
yeah. I wonder if he's still a ventriloquist. I hope not.
I hope not.
I hope not.
I just can't imagine that being, I say this, but I know there's a comedian who's made a whole career off of it, but
I
I
know.
don't remember his name, and he has like super offensive um dummies, but I can't imagine you just being like, this is what I'm going to build my life off of, this particular skill. Like you'd have to be really fucking good at it. Like Mary Shaw shouting across the room, across the amphitheater, like, to which
Yeah.
also, was she even doing that? I feel like that doll was legitimately alive, but
I think the dolls were talking, so like how good was she? Like really? I don't know.
yeah, yeah.
Mm, yeah. I mean, like, and don't get me wrong, it's like, like, hey, being a magician's cool. That's a cool job.
Hmm.
If you want to be a magician, hell yeah. Do magic. I love
I
it.
don't agree.
No, most people don't.
Um, but to make sure that I
Yeah.
say that while we're still recording, I do not
I'll edit it
agree.
out.
If we we went into, there was a magic shop. There's a magic shop, which I had not seen one in forever. And
Okay.
of course, my son sees it and is like, "Oh, like what's that?" And I was like, "Oh, I think it's just a magic shop. Like, let's keep going." He's like, "No, like let's check it out." So we go inside, and of
Yeah.
course, the shop owner is full on like sees a kid and goes into full magic act. And Phil is beaming, gasping, clapping, cheering. Like it's just us, just the two of us, and this guy doing magic tricks. And Phil was like, I want to learn how to do some of those magic tricks. And I was like, but like, you don't want to be a magician, right? And he's like, no, like not officially. And I was like, oh, thank God. Okay. You can choose many careers and be whatever you want to be, but a magician is not on that list.
Oh, let's. All right. Okay, that's fair. I'm alone in my yeah, alone in my
If we have any
conviction.
listeners, if we have any listeners that are magicians, either professionally or amateur magicians. You can make your case, but
My
it's
love for
going to fit into.
magicians, my love for magicians will show up again at some point in some of these
Yeah,
movies.
it's going to go back to the same, like, as miming. We're not miming. Mm-mm.
Okay, that's real. I hear that.
Yeah.
Well, okay, on that note, thanks everybody for sticking around, listening to us talk about Dead Silence. I hope you enjoyed listening to us talk about it as much as we loved sitting here talking about it.
Mhm.
I really hope that you didn't watch the 1997 made for HBO movie Dead Silence.
I saw
So
that.
yeah, so if you did, I'm sorry. I hope maybe some of our thoughts applied to both movies. I don't know,
Maybe
but
we should put the year stamp on
mm,
that when we post, just in case.
yeah.
No confusion.
Well, hey, I'm glad we had a good time talking about it, and
Hmm.
yeah, just don't accept any packages larger that are small child size or larger.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
don't do it.
This just stop that delivery person and say, "Hey, I don't care if this is for me. Send it back.
Yeah,
Right to where it came from."
I refuse to sign for this. All right,
Hmm.
take care, everybody. Have a good night. 3, 2, 1, ghost.
Thanks for listening to our episode on Dead Silence. If you enjoyed this episode, we would be speechless if you left us a killer review on whichever platform you're listening on. To stay informed on what we have coming up in the future, or to see photos of my grandmother's creepy dolls, give us a follow on Instagram at 321ghostpod. DM us with movie suggestions anytime. You can also reach us by email at 321ghostpod@gmail.com to share any comments, questions, concerns, or share your creepy doll photos. That way, we know which of you are the real weirdos. Thanks again for listening, and remember, keep your will up to date, because whatever you say, the mortician must do. 3, 2, 1, ghost.